Hi, and welcome to another Trident Talks. I'm very delighted to be speaking with an old colleague and friend from Ukraine, Mr. Taras Yatsenko, the CEO and co-founder of Tvoye Misto, based in Lviv, Ukraine, today to talk about greater engagement with Ukrainian communities to drive success in Ukraine's reconstruction and get the perspective of local NGOs and civil society organizations and their perspective, not just for reconstruction, but how to engage with international partners coming to Ukraine. So Taras, welcome.
Uh, hello, Michael, and greetings to everyone.
Thank you again for joining.
Oh, thank you for inviting.
I was wondering if maybe you could just spend a few moments just to describe a bit about Tvoye Misto, what it is, a bit about its history, and what it's doing right now.
So we are a local media, local independent media, working in Lviv and now Kiev for the more than 10 years in Lviv. And now we are developing our newsroom as well in Kiev, but focused mainly on local issues, on serving community needs, informational needs, and also building the dialogue within community, where we usually bring together responsible self-government representatives, governmental officials of the government at the local level, of local businesses, civil society actors, activists, experts in different various areas, and also moderating the dialogue between them to find the better solutions. But also working with daily news and all the information relevant and important for local citizens' daily life.
Right, and I know in the past we've cooperated with presenting survey research on Lviv and citizens' perceptions of their city and local economic development, and you facilitated those discussions, bringing together different stakeholders and local government officials. So, I know that's a great service for local communities to be able to get not just a fresh perspective, but actually have a discussion and dialogue. Looking more recently, are there any, examples you can see, right now with Ukraine's ongoing recovery efforts of community level engagement you're seeing with international partners that Tvoye Misto is either facilitating, or you're seeing that are either working well or areas that could be improved?
We don't go that deep into recovery issues in Lviv, particularly because we have, of course, we have the we don't have, luckily, so far we don't have that much of destruction. Though recovery is not only about physical rebuilding, of course, and we still do have many bad cases, but it's not that such a big burden as it is, in the eastern and southern parts of Ukraine. But we did have some discussions, public debates held in Kiev on Kiev and Kiev region recovery projects, and we noticed that sometimes there is a lack of real communication. I mean, communication with the community, and local media may be a good mediator for that. But sometimes we see that local government doesn't want too much to engage audience into rebuilding processes. Mm-hmm. At the same time, we sometimes feel also this the same approach from the donor side, from some philanthropies and those who fund these activities or projects of recovery or rebuilding. And we just have, and we sometimes have just superficial view on what's going on. And then when we go as a local media to ask either government, local government, or some organizations were supporting or financing it, the specific questions on why they choose this or this approach, why they spend more on this than on that, who are are the beneficiaries, and who are those who sponsor these activities. Sometimes they do answer reply, but sometimes they don't like too much. So I think that's where we lack a bit of communication.
So we have a gap there. I mean, do you see that as a responsibility? Should local authorities or local Ukrainian institutions be the ones engaging more with media, local media, to describe and explain, these decisions, or should international partners and international companies try and reach out through local media to present their vision or their perspective of either their investment or a partnership?
I think there are both. I think it's needed from both sides, both from the government and both from those international institutions who are supporting such rebuilding.
Are you seeing any international partners, maybe not just through the lens of Tvoye Misto, but which, as you point out, is not just Lviv, but also in Kyiv active, and your perspectives around the country. But are you seeing any of the sort of local engagement with media from international partners, or is it still very concentrated in Kyiv and let's say national conferences?
Yeah, I think it's mainly, from my perspective, from what I see locally, it's mainly, even in Kyiv, if we speak of Kyiv as a city, it's not focused, it's not the conversation that is going on publicly, locally. It's something that is really everything has been done on the national level in Kyiv. And I think this is a mistake, because Ukraine is a decentralized state, and that's where our main strength is, or one of the main strengths is. That's why we were strong in 2022 when the horrible Russian aggression started, because people felt their responsibility for their own cities. And people in Kyiv, we all remember those pictures where people were just getting in their hands guns to go and fight in the woods, just on the streets, and to save the city from horrible aggressor. And I think that's the power that's sometimes neglected. I feel it very, very often, that it's something that has been neglected by many donor institutions. And so often we see that, okay, they come to present something, they've done such a project, and they're inviting us usually only they're inviting us usually only at the very end of the process, when they've implemented some project, and they just want to promote it within the society, within the local community. Sorry, but it's not how things should work, because, for example, I remember in summer 2022, there were many projects supported by different countries, European countries mainly, and maybe also some American, maybe some also American institutions, to build housing blocks for IDPs in Lviv region. And at that time, these settlements, or how to call it in English, they were mainly these kind of small villages. They were built from scratch, from plastic, or from very simple wood, and these
simple
were
building materials.
Yeah, and these were like, I forgot the word. These were like a building. These were many small houses, each connected to each other, built on a limited area, and where like could 1,000 or a few thousand people could live, and they were all living. It was mainly at the time about women with kids, and then at some point they decided that they will make it a two-story buildings, and there will be one family here and one family up the hill. And we asked many experts, uh, architects, and urbanists and psychologists, saying that this is this is the most horrible thing. Of course, people do need support at this crisis moment, but why not to invest into why not to research first other any abandoned buildings of former schools and some other institutions that might be renovated at
Hmm.
the same speed with less resources allocated, but at the same time giving a possibility for normal living for those people in need, and no normal socialization, while the way it was implemented had a very bad impact on mental health, and also you can't use it anymore afterwards. So
So not a sustainable approach to developing housing that could then be actually utilized in the local real estate market even afterwards. Um,
yeah, and I think here is a lack of communicating, because we heard these ideas before experts. We heard this from many local citizens who were
mhm,
asking, like, why do you build this kind of a ghetto outside on the outskirts of Lviv? We want to welcome these people. We want to help them whatever we can.
mhm.
We want them to live within our communities and not just separately. So I think we have many examples of such approaches when something has been done with a very good, very noble goal, but implemented not quite right because there was a lack of communicating with local community, first of all.
And then you're reminding me, I know we had talked about this earlier as well, and particularly years ago when this happened, but at a bigger, at a different scale and in a completely different sector, but in the energy sector over a decade ago, Chevron was looking at developing shale gas in Western Ukraine, in Lvivsk Oblast, the Alesko project.
Mhm.
And that completely failed because Chevron was focused on Kyiv and Kyiv discussions and not engaging with local communities. And there was a lot of misinformation about what was going to be taking place in that territory. Are you able to walk through a little bit about what some of those, the public perception of people in the Lviv region, particularly, were about when this took place, and some of the mistakes that were made at that level? Because I think when we talk about particularly not just recovery, reconstruction, but some of these larger, projects around critical rare earth minerals, these topics that I think get a little more international attention, um, there already are examples of what not to do when it comes to this, whether it's designing housing or uh, digging up the ground in a community. So what took place then, as you recall, kind of big picture, some of the mistakes that were made.
Mhm. Um, Thanks for reminding that case. It was quite long ago. Yeah, it was like
Yeah,
more than 2 years ago, but
just before Euromaidan.
yeah. And I was just at that time just beginning to do something in the media, but I do remember that there were lots of uh, tough conversations because people found out, eh, if I remember correctly, how it happened. People found out about what these plans mainly from the publications uh, in the last moment in the media, and it was not discussed. And there were lots of people who protested against it
Mhm.
because someone heard from someone, we don't know who, that this is very environmentally unfriendly and environmentally dangerous project. Someone said that, oh, maybe they will just take this land and so on. So there were many different gossips, and also quite public, quite official statements in different local media, even at that time. And I think there was too much of manipulation, because there was a lack of facts, and people don't know if some environmental experts say, not experts, or activists say that okay, it will destroy the whole area because the way they do it is very harmful for the soil and so on, and they use some chemicals that will go into water and so on. And there was no real communication. There was no public debate. We didn't have public forums, public debates platform yet as Tvoye Misto at that time. So maybe we could help, but at that time it wasn't, and there was no public dialogue. And then I remember that many I remember that many regional councils in Lviv and also Ivano-Frankivsk Oblast, they were against it. And there are different gossips, different rumors on why it was like that. Some people say that it was about a big bribe they wanted to get, but some say that there was just no communication with community, and just people were really afraid and angry, and they were seeing this investment not as a possibility for transforming the region and investing in the region, while they were thinking that this is exploitation of their kind of assets that belong to the region, to the people of this region. And that's why it had so many protests and demonstrations against it, that finally, from what I know, they just quitted that idea and did not.
Yeah, it failed. It failed, and then you had Euromaidan, et cetera, et cetera. But the lessons there, though, like, particularly now that Ukraine, since that time and after the Euromaidan revolution, went through this decentralization process, those local communities, the Oblaradas, the Oblast level councils, city councils, the Gramadas, the new communities, they have even more authority now. So engaging with them is even more relevant today than it was over a decade ago, when it went very bad for a very large multinational international investor. And so, yeah, you pointed out the lack of public hearings, forums. This is something that could happen. You mentioned if Tvoye Misto was around, we could have maybe done something. But what are your thoughts on how those companies should be engaging? Would it be public hearings, meeting with local city councils? Because once the misinformation and the rumors and the gossip starts spreading, if no one's there to actually present their side of the story and engage with local experts, local community members, you leave a very big gap. Just curious to get your thoughts on again, the role of those public hearings and engaging with local media, again, just now putting it into that context.
I think that formats of communication may be very different. Those might include public hearings, meetings with different key stakeholder groups, going publicly into the media, having something like public debates that we have at Tvoye Misto, or making some researches as well. But also, maybe it's needed. I don't know if Chevron did the research on public opinion on this topic before they wanted to. I suppose that, I'm not sure, I don't know, but I suppose that definitely not, because at that time, Ukraine, as you mentioned, was really very different, and people could come to Yanukovych, or before, still 10 years before, to Kuchma and say, okay, we want to do something here. Let's do it. They say, yeah, let's do it. And everything was kind of arranged. But now we really have different Ukraine, which where the role of where people not just know about their role, they they know how they may change things either for
Hmm.
better or to change things for better in for their communities. So that's why it's very important to communicate with local with local people, and also having in mind that our horrible enemy Russia is fighting not just with they are not fighting just with the Ukrainian army. They are fighting with Ukrainian economy as well. They will do everything possible to make good big investment projects not start. That's
Hmm.
what I'm feeling and what I see often as a as a media guy. And we have this. We have to remember this always, and understand that on the one hand, it's easier now to communicate than it was uh, 10 years, 15 years
Yeah.
ago. But at the same time, it is harder to prove that your what your that to prove that people may trust your project. Uh,
So you've got to engage directly. I mean, I think that's something that we're telling folks, and that where we've seen success is when you actually go to the city, go to the community, engage directly, um, but also to use platforms like the ones that Tvoye Misto, which means your city, is offering as one of these methods to engage. And again, as you point out, engage at the beginning of a project or the discovery phase of an investment or program, rather than at the end when everyone's yelling at you and spouting all sorts of misinformation. Work with the community as you work with the government, as you work with investors to get real success. Um,
crisis crisis communication is always more expensive than the communication campaign that was planned.
right.
Uh,
And so
and
there's
also,
lots of options that you have now, yeah, that you can do well before that point.
true, and social media do help with that as well. But at the same time, I don't say that you don't have to, you don't have to care about, or like investors don't have to care about the national government,
Sure.
because they still do have to also to communicate and to agree on many things, and there are things where the government may help more, or
Hmm.
but it has to be a synergy. You have
Yeah.
to you can't go and do something just locally if it's about a big project, or if it's about projects that are being implemented across different parts of Ukraine. Of course, you do have to somehow uh, um, to communicate with the government on the national level, but at the same time, we you don't have to forget about the local government and local communities mainly. And sometimes people living in Lviv, Odessa, Kharkiv, Dnipro, or Zakarpattia, they may tell you something that will make your project finally better,
Hmm.
or for people in the business who are doing business there for years, they can also share their experience. But they have to know about you, and that's where also communication is important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Taras, thank you so much for giving us a bit of your time this evening in Kyiv to hear about the work of Tvoye Misto, and yeah, the synergy that national is important, but where your project is going to be located also is critical. And there's platforms that are very open to being used, like yours. We'll have a link together with the videos so that if folks are interested in reaching out or learning more, they'll be able to find you and try and ensure a successful outcome from the beginning rather than scramble to clean up a mess at the end. So thank you, Taras. Appreciate your time very much.
Thank you.